Hi, and welcome back to another episode of 100 Ways to Overthink an Anime. No, actually, this is the Blurred Truth of Anime. Welcome back to another Sunday morning service. So glad to have you here. I am your host, your pastor, your preacher, your message, whatever you want to call me, Black Star, here to talk a little bit more about an anime and dig deep into a message for this week. I hope you had a wonderful week. I hope that things went well for you. I hope that life is lifing in a good way. And if it's not, then F last week. We're going to this week and it's going to be even better. I'm putting that out there, putting all the good vibes out here for you. Now, when I first started this idea of a podcast and doing these messages weekly, I know that I want to give at least 1 week to an anime that's not on one of the big three, which is Crunchyroll, Netflix, and Hulu / Disney Plus. And no, I am not getting a paid sponsorship by this company, but I also want to highlight anime that is currently or has been on a little small platform known as High Dive. Again, they are not sponsoring me, but High Dive, if you would like to, talk to a girl. And for those who've been in the anime community for a little while, you may know or may have first heard of High Dive as that streaming platform that had all the ecchi, fan servicey anime. Like if you want to watch it uncut, if you wanted all the boobs and the butts, your male friends had a subscription to High Dive. While that is still there, High Dive has definitely put a lot of different animes on there. And me personally, I think in the last year and a half, maybe even close to 2 years of me having a subscription, I started off with, I'm going to do the 7 day free and watch all these really good animes I heard and then, move on. And then I found a couple of animes. I was like, no, I need to rewatch this. And I want to rewatch this a lot. So it got me to actually buy the subscription. And for the past year and a half, I think almost 2 years, every season there's been at least one anime that has blown my mind or had to be part of my top 5, if not top 3 of the season. They have some really, really good animes that I feel like no one gets a chance to really watch because High Dive is such a small app compared to Crunchyroll or Netflix. So I do want to highlight a couple because this is really, really good anime. I will try really hard not to spoil anything and, hope that you'll go out and have a chance to see them or have a friend, do whatever you need to do to watch the things to watch. I will also say one reason people do not have a High Dive subscription is that High Dive app sucks. It's a really bad app. I guess in 2 years it's gotten better. They now have an app for Samsung. So in the Samsung TV or smart TVs, whatever, you can get an app. They have an app that goes directly, and that has been the best I've seen outside just watching anime on their website. But I used to be so frustrated with that app, so I understand why people were not paying that subscription. But there's so many good anime, and I do at least once a month want to highlight something out there that has been rattling in my brain. Because it deserves some love too, and I hope that some of them get additional seasons if they need it. Some animes don't need additional seasons because they said they need to say, and they're 12 to 13 episodes, and we are there for it. If you're like, oh, what anime have High Dive had notes exclusive that you may consider really good? Oshinoko started off on High Dive as an exclusive, and now I know that's on Disney Plus and Hulu. But yeah, I am obsessed with Oshinoko. But there have been other times ones where they go from the really sweet to the really weird to the yeah, you are the ecchi. The ecchi streaming service. There's some really great trash anime on High Dive, and I'm not gonna lie, as Mother's Basement would say when they talk about their trash anime season and Shake Garbage, their restaurant, there's some top tier garbage that I like trash anime in general. So there are some that I do, but I'm not gonna talk about that quite yet. We just getting to know each other. We're still new here. Don't need to see all my freak flags flag quite yet. So we're gonna start off with a much cuter, sweeter anime that has been really on my mind a lot. And the anime we're gonna talk about today, where our sacred text is coming from, is called Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. That's a very interesting title. It really is. But it makes sense once you kind of watch the show. The main characters are kind of obsessed with jellyfish, and I personally am terrified of them. I grew up near the ocean and was always afraid of stepping on jellyfish when playing on the beach. But love watching them in an aquarium. They're such cool creatures. But yeah, Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night is a really beautiful story about four teenage girls in Japan, of course, in the Shibuya area mostly, who come together to create this online singing group. And not quite group, like how do I? It's kind of like the VTube where they come together to form like this VTuber band named Jelly, like jellyfish. And the four characters are all women, are girls who are dealing with complicated feelings around their art and themselves. And joining this group as Jelly kind of helps them, find community, which clearly I think in all of my last episodes we talk a lot about community, but also a way to overcome some like criticisms and some of the adolescence worry of being a teenage girl. If you are interested in learning more about like what does it mean to be an adolescent girl in Japan and all the social pressures that come with it, I will also highly recommend Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. It has a little bit more sci-fi like weirdness to it. Really good anime. Recently rewatched it for the second time in anticipation of the new season, the new season that just started. Rascal Does Not Dream of Santa Claus, and rewatching it the second time, I was like, I really love this anime. Like, yes, when these female teenage girls have these issues, they're doing body swaps and time loops and all this kind of stuff. It's really, really weird, but it is really intensive about the pressures of being a teenage girl in the Japanese society. And I think if you get that in Bunny Girl Senpai, but you also get that a little bit in Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. I'll also gush just a little bit more on Bunny Girl Senpai. I rewatched the movie too, and I remember going to see it in theaters when it first came out and like openly sobbing. And my partner, he was also sobbing, crying. And I just never rewatched it after that. I just remember being super sad that the movie was so sad. And I rewatched it recently and I was like, I forgot the ending. I just thought we ended on a sad note. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna wreck me. And I got wrecked again. And I was like, wait, there's still like 30 minutes left of this movie. Do we have a good resolution? I've forgotten about that, and especially since they're setting it up for the second season. But all in all, I will still shout that out. I'll probably do another message sometime in the future on that. But we're not talking about Bunny Girl Senpai. We're talking about Jellyfish Can't Swim in the Night. So let's talk about the four main characters, the four girls. Roll with me because there's a lot of double names. Okay, so there's like their real name and then like the name they go by, which doesn't make this any less confusing. It is what it is. So the main character that we kind of really follow is Mahiro Kozuki. She also goes by Yumisuki, I think. And she's an illustrator. And when she was in like elementary or middle school, she won this contest for an art piece she did that got turned into a mural. So really like, really good artist. And then she stops doing art. And we'll talk about why when we get to the main crux of today's message and the theme. Then you have Kano. She is former idol. So she's a singer, and her idol name was like Nonoka Tachibana. So again, everyone has these double names. So it's Kano or Nonoka or Tachibana-san. You'll hear them talk about her. And she had to retire, so she is a disgraced idol who is now working as a cover singer. And then you have Kyui Watasi, also known as Knots. I think Knots' last name was like Ryugasaki or something like that. Knots is the easiest way. And I'm going to actually refer to her more so as Knots than Kyui. But Knots is a VTuber and a childhood friend of Mahiru. And she does a lot of editing. She's super cool that way, does a lot of streaming. And then the final person is May Kim Takanashi, who is also called Kamura-chan. Her names are a little confusing, but she is a kind of like piano prodigy or more so like a piano player, musician kind of person. So you got these four girls. Real quick again, Mahiru, Kano, also known as Anoka, Tachibana, Knots, and May Kim are Kimura-chan, actually. I'm going to say with Kimura-chan, that's the one I remember the most. These four girls come together. And what I really like about their story, especially them being teenage girls within the age of like 16 to 17 is they're all dealing with, and sometimes failing to deal with, criticism. So that's the main theme. The main theme is like, how do we deal with criticism, especially as artists, as creative beings? It is super important to know that like all criticism isn't to help you and all criticism isn't to hurt you either. And I kind of think about criticism in three main ways that it kind of really shows up in this show. The first way is going to be subjective criticism around art, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. The second way is moral criticism, and then the third is professional criticism. So let's just go ahead and jump in. Also, I should also mention I'm using a different platform to record this week. So if this video comes out a little bit weirder than the last ones, or I feel like a really drastic shift, that's why I am trying to use all the different tools before I start paying for one to figure out what I like and what works for me as I'm continuing to do some of the editing on this as we grow this podcast. But I just wanted to shout that out first because it's gonna get a little weird. It's gonna get a little weird out here, but it's okay. We are learning and growing as artists. So as I mentioned before, there are three forms of criticism that I kind of want to talk about. And the first form is subjective criticism. I love art in general. I love visual art, performing art, musical art. There's just so much you can be done with art. And every art is not meant for everybody. I know sometimes artists in the whole want to become big, like they want their art to be appreciated by the general public, by the most people, whether that is because you want to make money off of it or you just, want people to appreciate and understand your art. And there's some art that has just been very much so like on the fringes. They're just for like smaller communities and smaller groups. Sometimes, they get into academia where we look at this 100 years later and like, oh, this is so great, we love it. And then, sometimes it just disappears. I mean, there's a lot of great artists when it comes to painters who were never revered in their actual time. And now if you find a painting on the bottom by this artist on their table somewhere in the middle of Europe, it's like worth millions of dollars, which this person literally died in poverty. I think a lot of modern art is interesting. And I remember going to an art museum in Boston. I think it was the Isabella Art Museum, the one that had the big heist. Isabella Gardner, I think it was. And I'm walking around her house and her collection of art. I'm like, oh, she's a fangirl. Like, she just collected all this. Like, this is fangirl behavior. And because she had money, we can call her an art collector. And now all the art, or some of it that she has, is considered to, like, important. But yeah, there's just so much to be said about art, whether it's visual or performing. There are so many artists out there who make different type of music, genre bending, create new genres, who just never get the accolades while they're living, or even after they're dead. There's tons of artists. I stroll through Bandcamp and just find random people that I'm like vibing to at any given time. But that also means that art is very subjective. You see the people who make it big. You see the Ariana Grandes, the Beyoncés. You see the Rembrandts. You see the just the people who their art has tons of fans and they're constantly booking. Like, I want to do that. I want to be there. I want to be appreciated that way. Where in essence, because art is subjective, it just may not reach everyone. It may reach a large population, but it may not reach everyone. And I like to call this out because I think Mahiro is definitely dealing with the situation. So as I mentioned earlier, she got the opportunity to have her art turned into a mural. And she did this beautiful art piece of jellyfish from the aquarium. And it got turned into a mural outside in Shibuya. And she brings her friend, and this is like very slight spoilers, like all the first episode. She brings her friends over to kind of see the finished piece, and her friends kind of down it. Like, they don't know that she did it. And they're kind of like, I don't get it. And she stops doing art. She stops drawing because of it. She's so afraid of being ridiculed. She even asked them to take her name off the mural, which was wild to me, but makes a lot of sense. Meant a lot of sense when you're like, okay, I put this thing out in the universe, and the people I'm close to, the people I thought like, oh, this is so cool. It's just like, I guess it's straight, or I don't really get it, or oh, this is so funny. And her friends are not being overtly mean about the piece. It's just like not their jam. Subjectively, it is not the kind of art they were expecting to see for whatever reason. And Mahiro really internalizes this and decides that she's just not good at art and she stops drawing. And that's really sad because her artwork did bring joy to a lot of other people. And because she asked them to scratch her name off the mural, a lot of people were like, well, who did this mural? And that really like changes her life when she meets Kano, who loves the mural. Like, it's one of her favorite places. She's like recording in front of it when she's doing some cover singing. And that's how they become friends and start working together on JELEE. And I think some of the criticisms that we hold in our hearts, are we engage in, especially as creative beings. I am a creative person. I love dance. I do performances. I went to performing arts high school. I'm a content creator, clearly doing this podcast, is that sometimes we get criticism from people where isn't their jam. And that's okay. I think that's really hard for some people to hear, that like, especially if you're someone who wants to like make it big, get the million subscribers, making money, this is all you do. And you're like, well, there's a lot of people who don't like it. Should I change? Well, yeah, if you want to be a populist, if you want your art to speak to a majority of people, yeah, you can take that like subjective criticism and figure out how do you make it appeal to more people, or you can find the audience your art was meant for. And that's okay. It is okay to have very specific audiences of people who are passionate about your work. I am a nerd. I am a fangirl at the heart of all things. I read fan fiction. I listen to random music. Like, if I find something I like, I just like it. And I go hardcore for it. And I think in my life, I want fans of the same nature. Do I think everything I do is going to like appeal to the wide variety of people? No. And I also know that even with this podcast, even with some of the other things I'll be doing, there'll be folks that'll be like, I don't like this, or how, especially in the religious community, like, how dare you try to give Sunday set services that's not based on the Bible or whatever. And like, again, it's not for you. This is not for you. And this is my art. This is what I'm putting out there, my content. And it's okay. I think when you deal with subjective criticism, you have to think about where is it coming from, and if the criticism is from the community that you are actively trying to pursue, or the community that's going to be built who will appreciate it. Because there are some criticisms that come from just like, it wasn't my jam. Like, as I like toy around with these different podcast software, I do stuff, I add videos, or I do other things. People be like, this is too busy, it's doing too much. And I just like listen to this. Fair criticism. Subjective, like, something's too busy, or something is not busy enough, or I'm listening to it this way, or I'm watching it that way. You have to balance it. But to go full sell and be like, just give up, just stop the way that my hero does, is never the right reaction. And I get it. It can be devastating, especially when you put something out in the real world as something you care about. Funny story, like, I've studied music, I used to play drums, I sing, but I don't really have a desire to be the next Beyonce. To be honest, that's a lot of pressure. Like, shout out to the queen all day. Go to concerts. I love the artistry. I don't have it in me. I at best want, if I were to do like actual professional music, like layout tracks, pop music, whatever, rap, I want to be a one-hit wonder. I want one song to go freaking viral, for me to cash it in, sell it to all the commercials, and 40 years later, still doing this song at like county fairs. I would be happy for that to be my anonymity. That would be like my claim to fame. And I would use that money maybe to like find other art projects or other music that was closer to like what I want to do. And if I wanted to just be a one-hit wonder, I would use the AI algorithms. I would figure like, what is it that everybody likes to listen to, and do a spoof off that and be like, see, it worked. I think it's so funny when like series creators do a spoof song or a spoof album, like Tyler the Creator and like his whole album that was making fun of New York hip hop, and that becomes like the big thing they get known for. Like, they blow up over it. And it's like, I've spent 8 minutes on this beat. This is a joke. Like, these are like not even my good rhymes. It's just like, I'm about to be whack. This is why I'm Hot by Mims was trying to make fun of the South. And that became his most popular, like, that became his one hit. And I know they're both like pulling their hair out for being like serious artists who like want to make it off what is true to them, for the thing that they're making fun of to be the hit. And me, wouldn't care. Wouldn't care at all. Like, give me my hit. Like, that kind of music is not the thing I'm serious about. But when it comes to other art forms, when it comes to like dance or burlesque or writing, I want to do a series of novels. I want to write for TV or movies. There's like I have all these ideas in my head that'd be really great media. I think I would be very hurt. Like if something I put out there was just like universally panned, and but then I think knowing myself, because I'm an optimist but also realist, I would love it if it became like an undercover hit. Like it becomes one of those cult classics. I didn't think I want to make a cult classic when it comes to the art that I generally like doing and like care and put my time, my effort, my whole being into. So I mean, I completely get why my hero is like, oh, my friends don't even like my artwork. I must suck. Stop doing art. I'm a teenage girl. I don't be made fun of. We're over it. But I think she also cuts off the people that the art was for. And then because it's out there, because that mirror is out there, she gets a chance to meet the rest of the group of JELEE. She gets the chance to meet Kano, who was like, no, your art inspires me, and that's why I keep singing, and gets to meet that group that really inspires her to do more things. So I think again, art is very subjective. It's super hard to, take every criticism, but you got to be discerning. You do. You got to realize that the person giving me this feedback, they just don't like it. Is it because it's just not their jam, which is okay? Or are they somebody who is part of the community I'm trying to build? And are there some tweaks I should make to make this a little bit better for the audience, or, where I can get stronger? That goes into my next thing about moral criticisms. And this gets even shakier. So, moral criticisms, I like to think, is when people look at you, your art, your actions, your behaviors, and they assign a moral value to it and say, what you did was against my morals. I no longer support you. That can be very, very hard. This comes up for two of the characters. It definitely comes up for Kano, as or when she's Nanoka as the idol, because like she has retired after a scandal, and for Knox, where some of their behaviors, some of who they are by the other wider community is frowned upon or is criticized, and it knocks them out of their space. I'll start with Knox because I think Knox is a more extreme example where Knox is this character who is like, as elementary school, middle school, so fundamentally who she is. She wants to be a hero. She is that tomboyish girl who's going to do all these things. And moving into high school didn't put her by the wayside. And so now she's weird for high school. Now she's being criticized for the things that are important to her and for the path that she wants to go into life. And she doesn't know how to handle that. Like people are putting a lot of like moral obligations on her, what it means to be a teen girl and this exclusive school, and she doesn't do well with it at all. She shuts down, and she uses VTubing. She uses her alternate streaming identity as Knox as like the perfect way to beat that character, to like engage the outside world on her terms, and it works really well. Like who she is expressed outwardly with some lies that get talked about later on in the series by her audiences, but it makes where she can't make real connections in person because of the fear of rejection, because people have already rejected what she found to be important. And I found that very critical in thinking about who you are and some of the people who try to like keep you in a box. I found Knox always to be a very cool character. I get why her classmates thought that she was childish and that like she was weird, but that wasn't a bad thing. And of course, it's very different in different societies. I watch a lot of anime and Japanese popular culture stuff to understand that there's a lot to be said in the social culture about being the same. And this actually is taught ad nauseum in Bunny Girl Senpai about the atmosphere, reading the atmosphere, and people going along to get along. There's a lot of conversation about not wanting to be different, especially as a teenager. And it's not too different from any other society, especially here in America. There's tons of people who just want to get through school and be liked enough and have their group of friends and not rock the boat and do what it means to do to be in social situations, especially girls. And then there's people who are kind of weird and they're ostracized, and it's really, really hard. There's people who, just like Knox, turn to the internet to be validated in their weirdness. And sometimes they build a really good following of people who support them, and then sometimes they fall into these really bad holes of people who say they support them, but really want to get them into these extremist ideas and groups. So I'm always a fan of like just not, it sounds a little weird. If someone's into something I'm not into, like, okay, fine, like do you, as long as you're not hurting anybody. Like moral critique when you're dealing with this, especially on the same size of what Knox was talking about, what Knox was dealing with. I think you have to think about like, do I just want to go along to get along, which sometimes is a valid answer. I personally do not do that. I don't encourage other people to do it, but I understand why it is a tactic to use. Or are there other avenues where I can be myself and also gain friends who will support me in that? Like one of the key quotes I live by, even got it tattooed on my arm, is like when you let your light shine, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same, which means like you have to be you at all times, and then you build that space for other people to come to you. And I felt like Knox could have been that for her school, but really just cave to the pressure, which I get. I get that some of those judgments that are happening, those criticisms, are really hard for a teenage girl to deal with, and she made the decision she made. I think some of you will make decisions you make, even as a grown adult. Me as a grown adult, I know sometimes it's really hard to know that you are the weird one in a group of people, and you're trying to figure out what's the best way to navigate it. But I also think that moral criticisms, you have to decide if the people who are giving you those moral criticisms are worth it to you, because we do not all have the same morals. Even people within the same religious group, Christians across the board do not have the same morals. We can watch, get whatchamacallit, the people that always do those incendiary, like little, like 20 conservatives against one liberal type of videos. Get 20 Christians together and watch. They do not have the same morals. They do not believe in the same thing. And that's okay. But I think you have to like think about, do we have the same morals? Is this worth it? And like, for them to assume that we have the same morals and to judge me by that, I have to take that criticism with a grain of salt. Do I care about the same things you're caring about? Do I care about fitting in? Do I care about being grown up? Do I care about X, Y, and Z? And if it comes down to you that like you're happier being you than caring about this person who has these morals that are different from yours, then that's not criticism you need to like actively change for it. It's just not. But on the flip side, we have not YouTube, our idol star, our Nanoka, who's an underground idol, after her scandal, dealing with a lot of moral criticisms about what the scandal was. And I'm not going to tell you what it was. That is a spoiler that I will leave to people who want to watch it. And one other thing I do like about Nanoka, or I hate using her, Kano, I'm going to use her real name. Kano, is that she takes responsibility for what happens. She takes responsibility for the scandal. She retires, and she knows she's disappointed fans. The scandal that happened, I'm like, she was right. But like in the moment when people see it and they're like, and especially for idols, like if you know anything about the Japanese idol scene, like they have such high standards for idols, about who you should and can be in your persona and all these things. If you do anything that steps out of bounds, you can alienate your fans, you can alienate the group. It's a whole thing. And I think she got into it understanding that, and she takes those moral criticisms and it's like, yeah, I can't continue after this. Like, this is unfair to the group. This is unfair to what they're building. And I understand, like, it is not just like the fans at large, because like, she cared more that she had like disappointed the fans, especially her fans, but also, she's getting a lot of internet hate. She's getting tons of people who weren't even fans of the group, talking about the incident, and it's just bringing a lot of negative attention to the group and the people who are still trying to work through that. And I think this is really complicated because there are some real judgments where, like, okay, why are people who are not even fans of you, and you don't know the whole instance of the incident and why she did what she did? Yeah, go suck rocks. Like, you don't know. But there are a lot of times where we have certain morals, and when we see artists, we see people who we like to support doing things that are against that, we make that judgment, be like, we give the criticism, like, I don't like that you supported this artist that's into this bad thing. I don't like that you did this violent thing. I don't like that you said this thing. I think we talk about a lot of streamers who have like very racist or sexist fan bases, that when you get on streams and lives, they're using these types of like horrible slurs, and we criticize the influencer, like, this is your base, like, stop it. And they're like, that's not me. I'm not saying it. Like, my base don't stop it. And then we put moral judgments on them. And they have every right to say, okay, I reject your moral judgment because I don't care about that. That's not who I am or what I care about. Or they can look at those moral judgments and say, like, I do need to make a change if I want to appeal to people who are not like this. I think when you are an influencer, someone who's making money off your art, your content, whatever, it comes down to the bottom line. There's some people who are hitting for money, kind of like me when trying to be a one-hit wonder. They'll do whatever they need to do to keep the people happy and keep the fan base that they have, even if they are terrible groups and they harm other folk. And I think it's up to us if we make these moral criticism of them to understand they don't have to back down. They don't. And the best way for you to really put your money where your mouth is when it comes to these moral critiques is to stop engaging. I mean, it sucks to not watch a YouTuber who you really like to make good content because like they have a horrible fan base or they won't condemn something that was a really terribly racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, all that kind of stuff. But again, they don't have the same. They don't always have the same morals of the people that they're giving their art to. And like, there's tons of artists I no longer listen to. There's tons of artists who I have a lot of like moral baggage around, and I can say it to my friends, like, oh, yeah, I don't listen to so and so, or I stay away from this because of XYZ, it's against my morals, blah, blah, blah. And I make those moral judgments on them. But I never go to the artist and be like, hey, I'm not going to listen to you because you're racist. Like, do they care? I think they care when their money starts falling apart. That's about it. So I think sometimes when and you're a person getting moral feedback, I think you have to think about like who's getting you the feedback one, and again, does your morals align? I think Kana does a really good job of like listening to her fans and realizing like, yeah, this doesn't align with who I thought I was and what I want to do, and I have to like do something professionally to like kind of show that like they're not wrong in holding these standards on me. And that leads into the third thing, professional criticism. Professional criticism, I think, is super important, either in your artwork, in your everyday, your day-to-day life, because there are people who know more than you about whatever art you're going to put out there. That's not just the fan base, it's not just people in the industry. But they give you the feedback, they give you the criticism because they want you to do better. They want you to be better. There is a lot of criticism in a professional sense that can be soul shattering when you think that you're good, but then you're just not good enough for this part. When you think that you're doing great on the rise and your fans love you, but someone's like, but I see all these like little things that could be better. And you know, depending on how big you are, you give the big hand, like, you know what, they don't know what they're talking about. I can do whatever. Or, you know, you start getting in your head and being like, all my stuff sucks. I need to redo everything. There's a healthy in between from all of that. I think Kano gets a lot of professional feedback as she moves along from being an idol to being a cover singer and trying to reestablish herself as a singer. I think Mahiru gets some really good physical feedback after she's been working with JELEE for a while, and now she's hearing from other artists and people who might want to buy her artwork or buy her services to be like, I noticed this, and like it's now she's taking that criticism a lot easier than when she took the subjective criticism from her friends when she just stopped doing art altogether. So it really shows some type of growth. I also think about our final girl here, Kamura Chan, who is in a piano. I feel like she went to performing art school, but maybe it's just like a piano class or something where, you know, she has to do these recitals and she gets ranked and she gets this feedback and she gets this criticism, and she's not sure she even wants to play the piano anymore. She was such an awkward kid in middle school. She didn't have any friends. She was very like shy, and she is a fangirl of Kano's Nanoka personality as an idol group. And you know, it helped her change her name and like trying to be a more outgoing part of herself. But there's parts of playing the piano she doesn't like, and she gets this professional criticism all the time. And she does something that I think is slightly healthy, where she like just does something else. Now that she's composing with JELEE, it's like I'm doing something very different outside the box of what I am being trained to do in my piano classes and my school or whatever, and work with my favorite idol ever and be useful. And I think taking that like second shift to look at something differently was super helpful, and her being able to take professional criticism in other ways with her piano playing. And I think there's a lot of times where like when you get professional feedback, it feels sometimes like an attack. Oh my gosh, it really does. I went to performing arts school, and let me tell you, let me start over. So I went to regular elementary middle school, not performing arts. I went and I was in like the smart class, the advanced classes, the magnet schools, whatever you want to call them. And I had parents that were really big about getting A's, get all A's. That's how you get to college. That's how you get a scholarship. I got to get all A's. And let me tell you, I was an A machine. I knew how to go to class. I know how to do my reading, my writing, my math, my social studies, sometimes science, and like get the scores, get the grades I needed. I was a grade machine. I will get my A. I will do whatever is necessary. Then go into performing arts where you're getting professional and subjective feedback and criticism, and that can change your grade. Like, yes, I can go to my APU's history class. I could go to my algebra 2 class. I could go to my biology class and know what to do to get that A. But I go to my dance class, and there's only a limit to the talent that I can show or like appeal to my dance teachers for the choreography that I'm doing, that I'm creating, the choreography that I'm doing that they created, the performances that I'm doing in class. That would give me, and I know there's so many other better dancers in that class. Same thing with chorus, and I was singing, like I did musical theater. This is so much where you're like, well, I didn't get the role, or I didn't get the role that I wanted, that I thought I was better suited for, and that like played into my grade. So I had moments where I was just like, this feedback, this criticism, and it affects my grade. Like I need this GPA for me to go to college, for me to get this scholarship, and these art forms that I genuinely love and really wanted to do are the things that are gonna like drop me down. And that was scary to me because I knew when it came to academics how to get that A, but when it came to art, it was super hard. And that's one of the main reasons why I did not pursue art in college, not even for like a side class. Like I was there on scholarship. How dare this C in modern dance make it where I may not be able to pay for my next semester? Nah, we're not playing those games. I'm a very big realist, and when it comes to it, my parents think I'm very fighty, but trust and believe I've thought through a lot of the ramifications of any actions I've done. And so like I say that to say like it's really, really scary when like a lot of your professional being is to get that feedback professionally. I don't think it's worth ignoring, and I do think it's worth having a healthy distance sometimes to like know that people are not saying you totally suck, you'll never be good at anything, but to take some of that criticism and to be able to rework it and then figure out how much of it is like this helps you move forward in the industry that you want to be in versus this is subjective and it's just things I just really don't like and I want you to fit another box a little bit better. Because those things are a little bit tied together and also can be mutually exclusive depending on the person giving you the criticism. Ultimately, what I love most about Jellyfish Can't Swim the Night is that like these four girls are coming together after having some major setbacks in their life when it comes to their artistry and in coming together to make a beautiful package. And as someone who is like, I want to do a lot of art, someone who knows that maybe my art, whatever the art may be, may not, reach everybody, you have to be okay with it. Ultimately, I am an Etsy girl. I will find you on Redbubble, wherever, where your weird art. I am a fanfic girl. An archive of our own, AO3, is one of my favorite sites. I will find your obscure stuff. And before then, I was on FanficNet. I was on LiveJournal. Like, I am here for the smaller artists who may never make it big, but like, I'm here to leave you comments to let you know that your art is worth it. And if you engage in art that you enjoy, leave that artist comments because sometimes they are just waiting for someone to acknowledge that what they put out there was good enough for you. And that is important. I'm also someone who violently believes that there is no bad art unless you're hurting other people. And then we go back to the moral criticisms to like when you're doing work that engages in homophobia, sexism, racism, and you get called out, like, are you taking other people's art? Is a bad look, or your art hurts other people. I think a lot of times I do rail at comedians who I feel like punch down because that's easier to do than sometimes making a clever joke that like punches up and then getting their audience is like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, it doesn't to me. I also rail against groups or artists that steal artwork from other people or take aspects of it and pawn off of their own, especially for oppressed or marginalized groups. And so I try really, really hard to not support those artists. And I think as a moral group, as we learn more, when even our favorite artists do those type of things, to reach out and find the people that they stolen from and support their work and support what they're doing, to let them know that they are valid, even if they don't have the bigger headlines, even if they don't have the bigger content or subscriber base. I know it was a big thing on TikTok for a while with especially dances, where certain creators are taking dances from other marginalized groups and then making them popular and being told that, oh, they're the founder of this dance, and it wasn't true. And I think we just keep our head on the swivel for those type of things. Not saying you shouldn't like those people, you shouldn't like that art or that content being created, but when necessary, when you can, seek out the originators of it. Seek out the people who, you know, may not always be the first in the limelight because they're not the biggest. Because we know groups that become the biggest oftentimes have a little bit more privilege or access to things that other groups don't. It just is what it is. But I say all that to say is, if you're a creator, artistic or otherwise, a writer, whatever, put your art out there. Someone's going to like it. Listen, I think all the time when I want to do my novels that I think, oh, no one's going to care. And then I think there's a Quan Mills out there, and Quan Mills literally does, I don't know, like, he puts together these, no hate to Quan Mills. There is no hate there. The man made smut books that curl the hairs on my chest, I just gotta say. But if there's a Quan Mills out there, there's someone's gonna buy your art. There's gonna be someone out there that cares about your art and wants to see it. And if you are someone who engages in art, whether you create it or you engage in other people's, like, send a love note, send a comment that is positive to the people who are doing things that you love. Let them know that there's not just all criticism out here in the universe and the internet. Because now with the internet, we have an opportunity to get just dialed into so many different other groups and genres than we've ever had to. We had to go to a local bookstore and go to local art markets, which are valid. Please do support local art and local artists. I am obsessive about local bands in my area. I will stalk them, which I think they need the engagement. So I generally love to listen to live and local groups and local artists and utilize their artwork too. But yeah, just support. That's it. And thank you for another Sunday on our Bullshit of Anime. And I will see you in August. Bye.
The Blurred Church of Anime podcast is produced by Black Star, aka Lauren Tillman, written by Lauren Tillman, and hosted by Lauren Tillman. Music created by EL47.